And I'm just saying this in the middle of the night, the wee hours of the morning, out here about to creep on a little bit of business, just in alignment with what the Brodie Dama said. Am I saying the brother's right? Brodie Dama, Dharma, I believe it was. You have to look at the thing in totality. Derek Jackson met the woman when he was way younger, so that was like sweetheart, high schoolish, 17, 18, 19 kind of thing. So essentially what happened, that Donnell Jones essentially became the soundtrack of his life. Like basically, look, I love you, but these streets, yeah, these bitches calling with that other pussy out there. I ain't really never had that pussy over there. I need to go hit some of that pussy. And I come back down to you, whatever. Now, remember, the woman is a woman. As a young teenager, you're not always able to see down the road in the future what lies ahead of you, okay? For religious reasons, remember that woman got a family. You may want to be the man that she would need. But now you get older, life is setting in, you got more of a name of yourself. I don't know how many of y'all brothers ever actually been to Atlanta. You probably can get some pussy in Atlanta blinking your motherfucking eye, nigga. You hear me? Last time I was in Atlanta, I was at an Outback Steakhouse talking to 10 single black women, just holding court. You understand? It's like that down there. So the thing of it is, am I surprised if this shit is real and he getting divorced? Hell motherfucking no. But it's something that goes beyond just your celebrity or being famous or some shit like that. You could be a regular hardworking dude that's just a likable guy that just has a knack to be able to pull women in a sense. But the fucked up part of it is, for the ladies that believed in a Derek Jackson, you could be this attractive guy that us ladies we find appealing, but we want to believe that you're monogamous and faithful and all this other shit. We want to believe in that, right? Now, depending on how he play that, he can pimp that shit. You hear me? Turn that shit into, ladies, I'm being realistic about the desires and thoughts and the reality of being a man in his full growth. Man, you know how many bitches would buy back into that shit? Hey, I need to step around the corner though. Peace to y'all.
I've been hearing about this situation recently with the divorce of Derek Jackson and his wife, right? I believe they met as teenagers. They've been married for a while, and now they're finally divorced. And as a man who's been a part of the manosphere for a while now, maybe not as long as some others, but I've been making content on it for a couple of years, and I've been, in comment sections and different forums and conversations for longer than that. And I think something to understand is this, for us, none of this was too much of a surprise. We all kind of saw what it was for what it was while the shit was going down. Like before any of the scandals came out, we weren't surprised by any of it. But I didn't even know that the guy was married. I thought he was a single man, right? I thought he was a single man who was just making content. Then we come to find out that the guy was single later on. And I think that's an interesting concept, right? But I think something to understand about this particular scenario between Derek Jackson and his ex-wife, his now ex-wife, is that Derek Jackson is a dominant man. Now, he was a feminine dominant man. Something to understand. He wasn't a masculine dominant man. He was a feminine dominant man. And you can tell that he was a feminine dominant man by the way that he would pander and put the principles of what he knows to be true within his own life and within realism. He would throw that to the side in order to get the bag, right? Derek Jackson knows female sexual nature, right? Derek Jackson knows the get down. This dude has been buff, swole, playing football and attracting women for a very long time. But what Derek Jackson did was he married a masculine, submissive woman. Something to understand, right? something to understand is that the feminine dominant is a survival mode. The masculine submissive is a survival mode. Those two things mesh together and they form an attachment. But it often forms a toxic relationship. Because masculinity is something that stifles submissiveness. Now, something to understand is this. Just because a woman is willing to tolerate what it is that you do because she wants to keep you around, because she's afraid of losing you, doesn't mean that she's feminine submissive, right? And that's not always something you can help 100%. Listen, I'm just being honest with you. We got to keep it a buck when we're having this conversation, and we can't try to speak as if every single woman you've ever come across is feminine submissive. But the truth is this: a lot of it depends on your structure as a man. A lot of it depends on just your structure, your program, right? Some men are going to meet a woman who is down for them, who's dedicated to them, who will put up with their shit before they establish their program and know who they are as a man. All right? I know oftentimes in these spaces we talk about being very direct and upfront with women. The truth is this: not every man is going to meet the woman that he loves and who loves him and who he feels he can build a life with before he reaches a point where he fully knows himself and he fully has developed his program and has the ability to vet that woman for the program, for the lifestyle that he wants to lead. So Derrick Jackson made a career off of pandering to women and telling them what they wanted to hear. Now, I don't 100% believe, I think I could believe it to a certain extent, but I don't 100% believe that his wife didn't know what he was doing. I think she knew to an extent, but her strong moral, religious background was something that put her in a position to view the things of him that he probably liked about himself as negative. And as long as he agreed with her narratives, when he broke those rules, it was something that gave her leverage to be somewhat in a position of control within the relationship through her setting the masculine foundation of what the relationship should be. Right? And as a man, there's only but so long you can feel as if your dominance is corrupted before you need to walk away. Now, I'm not sure if he left her. I think he said he filed for divorce. I heard someone else say that she filed for divorce, but this is something that takes place. This is a prematurely integrated relationship. He didn't truly know who he was as a man when he met this woman. So as he started developing, gaining more success, having women all over him, wanting to deal with him, he had a woman who was probably a great woman for an average guy to deal with, right? A great woman as far as she was attractive, she carried herself well, as far as not a very sexually exposed and expressive woman. You know, she was what a lot of guys would consider a good girl. Something to understand is this: as you become integrated, you need a woman who is also integrated. All right? You can't stay forever in that stance of having the woman who is the Madonna while you go out and chase whores. Understand what I'm saying? You can't do that forever. Eventually something's going to break. And that could be her mind, right? I've seen her online recently, like trying to curse people, some crazy shit, right? And I'm like, man, what they got going on with this? I'm like, yo, this is some crazy shit, right? But after a while, that kind of embarrassment, those type of things will start to weigh on a woman's mind. Now, I'm not sure how much work he put into accepting and embracing himself and trying to lead his woman into a position where she could be integrated with him. And I'll say this: for some men, monogamy is going to work as long as you're with the woman who's integrated, who matches your sex drive, right? To where you get the energy that you need in order to sustain yourself as a man, the sexual energy, that submissive energy. And cooperation is not enough, right? For you to be a masculine dominant man, cooperation is not enough. Because if she's cooperative, in order for you to maintain the moral high ground in the situation, you're going to have to be cooperative as well. This masculine submissive with masculine submissive. If you are a dominant man, then if you take a masculine dominant stance of being very direct with her, being very forthright with her, then that's going to be too harsh for her, right? Understand that the masculine submissive works kind of like a dry vagina, right? I'm just going to shoot it to you straight. Her femininity isn't lubricating her submissiveness for domination. Now, with the masculine submissive woman, she can have pockets of tapping into the feminine submissive. But oftentimes, she's going to have to reach a certain level of security and self-love within herself before she can take a truly feminine submissive role. And she may have to use that energy in order to maintain her sanity while dealing with a man who is taking a dominant role that she is unable to encapsulate. So in order to avoid the immediate pain of him being true about who he was and what he wanted to do, he took the feminine dominant position of allowing that woman to set the standard of the structure of the relationship through her social programming and her religious upbringing, to set that as the foundation of the relationship. Now, even if they had an understanding, it's one of those things where she couldn't truly embrace what type of man he had become and what type of man he was. Right? Now, I'm going to keep it 150 with y'all niggas, right? 150 with y'all niggas. $150, right? Keep it a buck. For some men, the dedication and the love and the loyalty that you'll find with the masculine submissive woman is going to exceed that in which you'll be able to find with women who may take a feminine submissive role for you for the meantime, or the feminine dominant women who are bait and switching you, right? So there may be a lot of women who will burn out taking the feminine submissive position unless your program is very developed. But it takes time to heal to even be in that position, right? See, one of the things about the masculine submissive woman is endurance. Endurance, especially the religious type, they tend to have like a specialist. We're talking about MBTI, like ISFJs. My first love in ISFJ, right? Sometimes there's this internal feeling of feeling like you deserve punishment, right? So there's a certain level of endurance and tolerance that comes with it that isn't necessarily embracing the lifestyle that you want to lead, and oftentimes that's due to social norms, social programming, and a social identity. So there are a lot of relationships that take place where a man is dealing with a woman, and this woman knows what type of man she's dealing with, but as long as she isn't embarrassed in the public eye, everything is fine. But if the man isn't discreet, these things come out, the woman gets embarrassed. That's where the pain comes in, because she has to think about her social group, her social environment, and the way that she views herself in the eyes of others, right? Because the masculine submissive is often heavily predicated upon the opinions of those around her, and she is spreading out her desire for validation to several sources rather than being able to hone in her desire for validation into herself and her man. So for a masculine submissive woman, if she believes that the love is real, and especially if she's being provided for handsomely, right? She's being well provided for. She'll be able to tolerate things for a period of time, right? And me and Mr. Brown and the Kevin Samuels group, official discussion group, we had a discussion about this topic. I saw somebody said, this is what somebody said. I think it's I'm Faulkner, something like Faulkner. And they said, what Derek Jackson had to accept is that he can no longer be monogamous. He began to earn a lot of money. He is a man that women are attracted to. He also panders to their emotions. So quite naturally, he has been getting women throwing themselves at him. It's nearly impossible as a young man to turn away every woman. That is why you keep it real from the jump. Hashtag Godfather is undefeated. Now, I don't believe in that whole concept and aspect of saying that how much money you have should determine how much character you have. I don't believe in that. And also, Derrick Jackson has been in shape and had the social status of being playing football and things like that in college. He's had women who were throwing themselves at him even before the money. So I'm not sure if this is something that started later or if this is something that started now. But when I saw this, I had a particular comment that I made, and it started a discussion between me and Mr. Brown. Shout out to Mr. Brown, right? So I said he met her as a teenager, so it was too late for him to be upfront when the change happened. His wife and her spiritual leanings weren't able to adapt to the reality of what she was dealing with, right? She was able to tolerate it, but she couldn't fully embrace a poly/non-monogamous lifestyle. I'm guessing he left to give her some peace as it was tearing her apart that she didn't and couldn't fully have him all to herself. See, this is an important thing to understand. I don't think necessarily anyone is the bad guy in this situation. Of course, he's going to take the role of the bad guy, right? Anytime you embrace the feminine dominant position, even if you feel like it's necessary in a certain situation, even if you're not breaking the actual agreements and understanding that you have with the woman, when you take the feminine dominant position, you are embracing that you are going to be viewed as the bad guy at the end of the day. Right? He could have been a man who was honest with the woman. She may have had things she was dealing with that made her unable to be fully sexually available to him or able to get with all the freaky shit that he wanted to do. You know, I remember seeing pictures and a lot of times Christian women in church be some of the freakiest ones. But I've seen pictures and videos of her and how she'd be dressed and kind of real homely. You know what I mean? But me personally, I am attracted to women who know how to dress modestly. That's not a fake thing. It's a real thing for me. Like, I genuinely am attracted to natural hair. I'm genuinely attracted to a woman who knows how to carry herself in a way that's somewhat modest. You know, that's kind of a kink for me. That's kind of a fetish for me, right? That's just real. But if you don't have that, then it only really comes from a place of insecurity, of wanting the woman to look in a way where you don't feel like other men are going to approach her, and her carrying herself in a way where it doesn't appear that other men will approach her gives you a sense of security that she's not giving your pussy away. Right? So I said there's a big difference between tolerating and embracing. That's the masculine submissive cooperating versus the feminine submissive true submission. It happens to the best of us with blue pill shoddy. Now that's a concept that Mr. Brown brought to me maybe some months ago. We were having conversations and he brought to me the concept of blue pill shoddy, and I said in those situations it's a game of attrition. Will it be a phase or the new normal? If it's a phase that ends as a man gets beyond his peak testosterone years, then the woman gets credit for sticking by the man. But if it becomes the new normal that he desires, she will either have to adapt or the relationship will end. So Mr. Brown replied and said, indeed, especially with blue pill shoddy, it's highly doubtful that they will be feminine submissive even after we get our shit together in various capacities. It takes a strong dude to leave that blue pill shoddy. Usually it's the other way. That said, in D. Jackson's situation, even if he requested non-monogamy after the fame, it's difficult for his blue pill shoddy wife to accept this. I bet from here on out, monogamy is out of the question. He will let it be known up front. And then I said, it's not impossible. But part of the issue is that blue pill shoddy often is not sexual enough for her man for him to feel comfortable with the prospect of another man taking her there. So he won't fully encourage her to explore her options while with him. But so many men are able to overcome that hurdle and keep that first love. The loyalty ain't to him, but her structure. Once a man trusts his structure and gets beyond the fear of her getting domed by another man, he typically won't feel the same about her. But the truth is, she will be the best and most consistent, dedicated woman that most men will ever get in a lot of circumstances, which many men won't be honest about. Now, the truth of the matter is this. A feminine submissive woman doesn't mean that she's going to go for anything. Right? A feminine submissive woman is going to go for you as long as you're in a position of strength, as long as you have emotional discipline, As long as you stick by your word and what you say you're going to do, as long as you carry yourself in a masculine dominant way, right? If you start to carry yourself in a feminine dominant way, a feminine submissive woman will lose respect for you. And once she loses respect for you, she loses attraction. Once she loses attraction, she moves on. Understand that. The masculine submissive woman may not be fully able to pour out the energy of a feminine submissive woman, right? But it's the sexual energy and the submission on a higher level of her receptiveness to dominance. But she will typically be able to be a more sustainable relationship for a man until his structure is well established. So then Mr. Brown said yes. However, if she didn't adjust to the new normal, is she really dedicated? That said, there's something to be said when the trust is breached and the original agreement of monogamy was broken. Still, I also wonder when he put on the muscles and noticed the choosing. Because if he noticed this going into the marriage, even before the fame, he should have still communicated non-monogamy from the jump. Sounds superficial, but ain't no way an 8 who know they are an 8 will settle for 4. Then you add fame and money. Stop it, LOL. Now I'll say this. I'd say that his wife is more so like a 7. I see her as a 7. And if she cleaned up and got some of that repressed ass sexual energy a little bit more opened up, she'd probably be a smooth 8. Really. But it's just the way she carried herself. It just had such a repressed sexual energy that a man who is secure within his sexuality is going to see that kind of boring. And a lot of men get caught up in the Madonna whore complex. You know, the Madonna whore complex is a two-way street. Right? The man stays with the woman because he feels she's not going to give his pussy away. It's not because of the trust is being established on their everyday interactions. It's because of the structure of her own mindset. It's the structure of her own values and beliefs that keeps her operating within a certain way so that it's not based on the structure that the man provides. She won't receive his structure. She may allow him to be dominant in one way or another. She may even accept that because she can't meet his sexual needs, that he's going to meet them elsewhere. But if this ever becomes public, if it ever comes with embarrassment, if it ever crosses paths with her social environment to where it starts to affect her negatively on an emotional level, on a mental level, if she ever catches an STI, if he ever has outside babies, right? If the drama ever comes home, then that's going to be a lot of pressure on her. And she's not going to really be able to handle it. Now, she's going to handle it better than many women would. You have to understand in these scenarios is that for the masculine submissive woman, the man needs to eventually reach a place where who he is as a man within the masculine dominant role is something that resonates with her internally so that she can get on with his program, right? So I'll say this, oftentimes it can work like this. Let's say you meet a woman when you're young, and when you meet that woman when you're young, you probably don't know too much about what it means to operate as a dominant when you're heavily socially programmed. And you're probably going to have to operate out of the feminine dominant a little bit for her to be able to tap into those rare moments of the feminine submissive, right? You're pretty much using your fluidity, you're subverting her expectations in order to put her in a position where she could tap into that. But eventually, it's kind of like money laundering. You have to move that energy into a space where the things that you're doing that are making the relationship work pretty much becomes a dom-sub dynamic, right? Where she accepts. And when she accepts and embraces her role, then she is in a position where she has the capacity to accept and embrace that role, to tap into the feminine submissive, to let the reins. But this is the hard part. Your masculinity has to exceed her masculinity. Right? You can't lie to the woman and cheat on the woman and be dishonest about what you're trying to do and be petty and go out of your way to manipulate the woman in a way that doesn't benefit her and then think that you're going to be able to launder that. It's like the drug dealers, right? Or like the people who live a lifestyle that is not legal. For men who live that particular type of lifestyle, what they have to understand is that you have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Your impulsivity, your lack of composure, your lack of self-control, your lack of being honest with yourself is the same reason that you're taking that feminine dominant stance is typically going to be the same reason that you have an inability to transition into the masculine dominant. And what do I mean by that? I know we've all seen drug dealers who came and went, right? Who died or they went to jail. But then we've also seen a few of them who were able to transition into a position of having a barbershop or a car wash or having some type of small business with a lot of cash flow. And they were able to launder that money over time and then to take, and to fudge the numbers a little bit because there's a lot of cash flow in the business. And then to take the money that was then cleaned and then to use that to establish something that's more so consistent. You can't take a bunch of drug money, cash, to a car dealership, to a respectable car dealership, or to a respectable neighborhood without proof of employment and proof of where that money came from and not expect for IRS to be on your ass. Now, what is IRS? IRS is this woman's internal value system. Right? In order for her to be able to move from the masculine submissive to the feminine submissive, one, you have to be able to encourage her to embrace herself, to love herself, to fill her own cup. You can't be her only source of validation. She has to be able to be more secure within herself. And the hard part is that in most of these instances where a woman is masculine submissive, it's not going to be a situation where she views choosing you as the feminine decision, as the emotional decision, as what she wants to do from a place of what her femininity feels safe with. So that IRS is that her femininity doesn't feel safe with you, right? It's going to come for your ass unless you know how to launder that correctly, which means that what happened in the dark is going to have to come to the light. And that means that what happened to the dark, right? What happened in the dark can't be something that's so far outside of the realm of what is acceptable or what is something that you can communicate and be honest about. It can't be so bad and so against what you say with your own mouth that you are down for and what you're trying to do that she can't trust you. You have to be able to launder that, but you also have to have the capacity to understand, right? To understand that woman. So, I'm looking at these situations, and I remember I was reading the post that he made online, right, when they got divorced, right? And he said, over the past several months, my family and I have gone through many changes. Some of you speculated while others of you have reached out to offer support as we privately establish this new normal for ourselves and our beautiful children. Earlier this year, after much prayer, counseling, and deep consideration, we decided to go our separate ways and filed for divorce. Making the decision to file was one of the hardest decisions of my life, but I found peace knowing that our mission of raising healthy children, starting with healthy and whole parents, is still being accomplished. From falling in love as just teenagers to becoming spouses and now co-parents, I'm grateful for the years we spent together and wouldn't trade them for anything. I was blessed to have such an amazing person in my life and will forever be thankful for all she's meant to our family. We asked that if you pray, to please pray for us as we navigate this grieving process. If not, please respect privacy. Now, I think that this is a very important concept to understand when we're looking at this situation, right? It's very important to understand that when we're looking at these particular types of dynamics, that there are things that come along with it, right? There are things that come along with this. And if you don't understand that sometimes things just ain't gonna work out. Sometimes they can. But when you go from premature integration, right, you have to take a step back and reach polarity, masculine, dominant, feminine, submissive, and then reintegrate, right? It's very difficult to be prematurely integrated and then to have something that's going to be sustainable in a healthy way. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to do. All right, I haven't mastered it myself. You know, if there's one thing that I would like to really share with guys, it wouldn't necessarily even be the whole masculine, dominant, feminine, submissive thing, right? That's something I would like to share with people. But I think that that's something that naturally occurs. I would like to be able to help people who are in a position where they're prematurely integrated, because I do believe that oftentimes that first love, oftentimes those first relationships that people get attached to one another, that if they know the tools, they know the strategies, they know how to correct the situations, that they can put themselves in a position to have someone who they know is down for them, right? Before the money, before the success, before all these different things take place, there's somebody who is down for you. I think there's a lot of men who probably need to get back with their baby mother. Sounds crazy, but I do think that. I think there's a lot of women who need to get back with their baby father and reestablish their families. But oftentimes there's so much hurt in the way that it's damn near impossible for these things to take place. So I do think that Derrick Jaxn, you know, now he's probably in a position where I saw the new woman he's dealing with, and he's probably going to take some time just to run the streets for a while, to embrace his newfound freedom. I don't know if he's going to back off the advice he's been given. He's probably been backing off of it a little bit because people probably don't take it serious anymore. But, you know, I never took him serious in the first place. That's just the truth. But at the same time, it may be a situation where his wife gets free, you know, of the situation. She finds some peace. And then in the peace that she finds, she may find herself in a position where she reaches a certain level of security within herself. She might get beyond some of that religious indoctrination that holds her so tight to where her religiosity is starting to turn into trying to curse people like it's on some witchcraft type of shit. I think a religious indoctrination is such a tough thing. And when you are a man who is moving beyond that, you're growing in yourself. One thing to understand is that churchianity is something that often is meant for the purpose of causing men to become submissive. Not Christianity, but churchianity. And that some women cling so strongly to these social norms and these social values that they may have a man who loves them, who's down for them, who wants to have a life with them, who wants to have a future with them, who wants to build with them, who wants a marriage, a family, but he's honest with himself that, listen, monogamy may not work for him. Right? At least not unconditional monogamy. Oftentimes for women who are masculine submissive, they put so much energy into being a people pleaser and of trying to make everybody happy that they lack the energy to be able to fully give themselves to their man sexually. Right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Derrick Jaxn's wife has never truly been sexually satisfied. Right? I wouldn't be surprised if she's been holding herself back for a long time when it comes to sexuality, because she has a very sexually repressed energy around her and how she carries herself. And there's a certain level of modesty that I can respect. But I mean, I seen her in a swimming pool with like full garb on, like her whole body covered up, like on some holiness type of shit, right? And some of this stuff I don't even think is scriptural. Some of this stuff I don't even think is really God, right? And when you confuse the doctrines of man and traditionalism with God, as a woman, you put yourself in a position where you have a man who loves you, who's down for you, but because of your religious indoctrination, you're not even really willing to give yourself over to him. The things you're standing on may not even be scriptural. They may not even be biblical, right? And just like you may feel like there's only but so much you can put up with, there's only but so much that man can put up with as well before he needs to step outside. Now, if I'm not the biggest fan of making non-monogamy all about the need for variety, but that's just not really my mindset. But I do think that when it comes to sexual compatibility, a man needs a certain amount of energy. A dominant man needs a certain amount of sexual energy coming from his woman to maintain and to sustain his cup. Derrick Jaxn could very well have loved his wife, but could have been in a position where she was so sexually repressed that the only way he could maintain actually being a good husband to his wife was to go deal with other women. I don't think that's necessarily because of such a need for variety. I think sometimes it's just a need for intensity. There's a variety of acts. There's a variety of intensity. There's just an energy that comes with a woman who's feminine, submissive, that pours back into that man in a way that keeps his blade sharp. Right? And without a man keeping his blade sharp, he becomes declawed. And the thing to understand about the masculine submissive woman is that part of what she's attracted to about that man is his edge. So when a man becomes declawed dealing with the masculine submissive woman, she loses respect for him as well. She loses attraction for him as well. It's just that she has such this repressed shadow, such this repressed level of what it is that she's into, right? That she's unable to fully give herself over to her man. Right? It's like it's so repressed that she's unable to fully tap in. So she may have a negative view towards the things that give her body gratification, that make her feel sexy, that make her feel beautiful, right? And she may know that there's a Pandora's box behind it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Derek Jackson's wife, after they get divorced, she just starts wilding the fuck out. She already seems like she's losing some of her mental health, how she's trying to curse people right now, right? And oftentimes, a man may stick around because he knows that once she gets from up under him, that eventually there's going to be a man who may have even worse intentions, who's even more insidious, who's going to come along and fuck her up, right? Who's going to open her up, spread her all the way out. And once she gets spread all the way out, it's going to be another side of her that comes out that she's been repressing. And I say this to the women, you know, understand that aspect of who you are is inside of you. It's there. And I understand that when you have a low cup, oftentimes the first thing that you do is you go into self-preservation about your submissive sexual ego and getting into that energy. That's one of the first things that goes, right? But understand that if you have a man who loves you, you're putting yourself in a position where he may just be holding on because he's afraid that somebody else is going to be the one you tap into that with. So these are just my thoughts on the Derek Jackson situation, you know, with the Derek Jackson divorce. I just wanted to share some information with y'all about premature integration, you know, because integration, premature integration, those are two different things, man. Like I've seen people who is integrated. That's a beautiful thing, right? Where you're on the same page. The dom sub dynamics are right. The masculine feminine dynamics are right, right? But you don't need to be in proper polarity in order to love one another and to have an attachment. But that attachment without the proper polarity eventually leads to power struggles. It leads to a battle of beliefs. It leads to a battle of wills. And something's, typically something's going to break. Sometimes that may be the man, sometimes that may be the woman, right? So this is Coach Brodie. My thoughts on the Derek Jackson divorce situation. I'm out.